Okay, after you said that, I'm about to run out the door. You better start praying now. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming out. I've loved to visit with Eagle Forum. I feel like I'm among friends when I come here, and I do have a lot to catch you up on, and I see a lot of faces out there, and some of you I know and some I don't. I see a lot of new faces, and so if I repeat something that you've heard, just remember that I'm a teacher, and it is always good to review. So we're going to have a little bit of a review. I want to start by saying that it has been an amazing 2 weeks, and I had actually been praying, as I prayed many years ago, that the Lord would show me the next step in my life. And the last time I prayed that, my boys were 3, 3, and 1. And that is when I was able to approach the senior pastor at my church at the Woodlands United Methodist and say, can I borrow some classrooms to do just a few science classes and to teach children that science and God go together, and that God is our creator and that we are made in his image. And so all these years later, we're in our 17th summer, and the impact on children in this area has been enormous. And we have satellite camps going on, and I sell curricula at times, and do the teacher trainings and all of that. So that has been a huge blessing. But then I had my twin sons. They actually just finished their freshman year. And I wish that Chase was in Louisiana, because that's a lot closer than LA. But he's not. He's out on the West Coast and loves it. But then I have my Baylor Bear, so that's a good thing. That's where my husband and I met. All right, sick 'em. All right, love it. That's where we met and married and etc. So we're big Baylor fans. I had a little, not much, but a little extra time in my schedule, and I prayed that the Lord would show me how to fill it. But never did I imagine he would answer this way. So watch what you pray, right? Because it is very humbling and an honor to have been called by the governor. And I want to tell you just a little bit about that, because it's interesting. I think it's interesting. When I first got the call from his appointments person, I was on my way to teach a class about dinosaurs and fossils and all that cool stuff. So that was kind of interesting, but the children, you know, I get so absorbed in the children, and they just brighten my soul. And so, you know, I'm around these children, and I'm thinking, you know, this is probably something I need to consider for their sake, because these are precious school children, and that is what the State Board of Education is supposed to be about, is to focus on the children. And then throughout that day, you know, after thinking and praying, and then when the governor himself called, and we talked for quite a while, because I don't really know him personally, and I sure knew he didn't know me personally, and I felt like it was important that we visit. He's a very friendly person. Many of you probably know him. He's easy to talk to, and I think he was at home, because at one point he yelled over his shoulder, Anita, blah, 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 you know, and asked her a question, and we had a really nice conversation. And but I did ask one thing, and that was, I said, Governor, I would like to meet you face to face, because I think we need to look each other in the eyes and have an understanding, so that I know if you want me to serve in this capacity, that you'll be there to support me, and that you will give me methods to equip me to make this a successful thing. And so we were able to work that out. My youngest son went with me to Austin, and we met him at a little airport. He was about to fly out in a conference room, and that was really great. And he loves kids, so he did invite my son to stay during the meeting. And I said, well, that's a good thing, because Connor, my youngest, is the one who will be impacted the most by this decision. And so we had a nice conversation, and I want to go over some of the things that we actually talked about, because I thought it would be a good idea to take with me the major accomplishments of the State Board of Education. Now, I know that a lot of you probably read the media and the press, but raise your hand if you actually believe what you read all the time. Okay, I'm just making sure that we're on the same page, because if you really want to find out what's happening, I'll go ahead and pass this out. The teacher here, I borrowed some notebook paper from this nice lady right here, so I'm going to pass out 3 sheets, and you just sign one of them if you would like to receive my email newsletter. And I try to do it after every state board meeting if I practice good time management. But you need to write clearly. I'm big on handwriting, so you need to write so I can read your email address. So that's your first test of the evening. So if you'd like to receive my newsletter, let me know. And I'm happy to tell you that the teacher who runs my database is actually here. Teresa DeLong is here. And so you'll receive it from her. She's a teacher at College Park. Where is she? Wait, Teresa. And we're up to about 4,000, I think, names in the database that I've collected for the last 8 years. So I'd like to add to that. So here, you'll start one. There we go. And lock the doors till I get those back. I'll get those back. So. It's important to me that you hear the truth about what really happens with the State Board of Education, because the media has very much enjoyed making the board a mockery. So I would like to tell you some things that are going on. And this is what I visited with Governor Perry about. When I first came on the board, one of the first things that we did is we voted on math books. And that was a very interesting process. And so we as a board voted actually to reject one of the math books that was up for adoption. Now, I only brought the workbook because the book itself is big and I can only carry so much. But the title of the book is Texas Everyday Mathematics. And, you know, in looking through the book, it looks pretty nice and there look like there's some reasonable things, but when you really look at the way that they are teaching math or suggest to teach math, they had almost every activity as a group activity. And this is the 3rd grade, by the way. This is 3rd grade text or workbook. And the book itself had students using calculators in almost every activity. And then it did not require them to memorize all of their multiplication tables, because of course they had the calculators that they could lean on. Well, I don't think that's a good way to teach math. And I personally made index cards for my boys, and I remember sitting at soccer practice and just using those flashcards so that they could practice memorizing their multiplication facts and their addition and subtraction and etc. And so fortunately the board, we were able to get the votes, because there are how many of us on the board, do you know? 15, all right, perfect, good. There are 15 of us, so 8 is a majority, and we are always really working hard to get those votes so that we have 8. Unfortunately, we did lose a conservative seat in the last election, so right now there are 6 true conservative Christians on the board, and so we now have to fight for 2 votes, whereas in previous years we had to fight to get 1 vote to be a majority. So that has changed, and will be interesting as we proceed. But we did reject this math book, and so I'm very proud that we did that, because when a book is rejected, then the state does not pay for it. And so then districts are very likely to not use that book. So that was one of the first things that we accomplished. All right, so let's move forward. Then I think it was probably 3 years ago, we got to English language, arts, and reading. And you know, you would think that that would be something that we would all agree upon, because phonics and good grammar and spelling and handwriting and all of those traditional ways of teaching English, those are very, very high on my list. Well, I got to tell you, there are a lot of people in our state who don't agree with that. And they do not think that our students need to practice spelling or handwriting or even phonics. And there was a huge, I guess I'll call it an uprising. And we had a lot of, there were English coalitions that were formed, and they came to Austin to testify in front of the state board. And it was a very interesting thing. I was very, very surprised. I was still pretty green. I was new on the board, and so it was a bit of a surprise that it was handled that way. But let me tell you what we did get passed, because this is awesome. Right now, and this curriculum is in the classrooms right now, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. But the English language, arts, and grammar focus on serious literature and nonfiction now. They focus on composition skills so that students will have practiced that